Shmuel Yeager was talking about yesterday.
Yes.
So then I think it's supposed to be in his house.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think it's supposed to be in Shmuel's house, or whatever it is.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Thank you, everyone, for coming. And thank you for your well wishes. I feel a little bit older today than I did last time I was standing here at the podium. Baruch Hashem, my oldest daughter became a Kala, got engaged. And definitely a new stage in life is something that makes you feel old. Hashem, the wedding is after Pesach, May 8th, in New York. New York. Why New York? There aren't so many places here in Florida. But
why not?
Plus the family there.
He's from Dallas.
Huh?
He's from Dallas.
Okay, yeah. Ain't gonna be a wedding in Dallas.
Why would you in New Orleans?
Huh?
What about New Orleans?
You want to go halfway? Anyway, so you should understand why in the next couple months, if we end up doing a few extra shiurim on things related to marriage, you'll understand why my mind is over there. But today's share, really, I want to focus on the broader concept. We entitled the share Minhagim in Halacha. And I want to talk about the broader halachic concept of a minhag, of a custom. And I actually I'll start with this, good advice from an elder statesman here in the share. He saw me on Shabbos, and he said, you're having your son-in-law over, future son-in-law, you should ask him at the Shabbos table, what does your family do different than what you see over here? So I was ahead of the game. I did that, and we started talking. Now, excuse me. We thought we did all the checking. We looked under every rock to find everything out. My daughter did a good job of interrogating him on each date. So we thought we knew it all. And then we found out about the big G word.
Gebrox.
You got it. Gebrox.
That's a deal breaker, I'll tell you. I want my Canadian. Really.
Right? We found out that his family has Hasidic ties, and they have a family custom, a family minhag, to be makbid on gebrox. Not to eat lots of funny things.
I would only consider a Canadian natal.
Okay, that was definitely good for the older generation, right? The line was, he'll only consider, someone said when he went enter Shidduchim, he only considered a Canadian natal, but nobody else, yeah. Right? Well, my daughter's a Canadian natal, but it doesn't help,
She's got a duck.
Right?
Yeah.
It goes the other way.
Wow.
So they won't come to you for Pesach?
No.
One last hurrah now.
So I know my wife started revamping all our menus. I said, why can't we just view it as, I have a fish allergy. So why can't we just view it as fish, okay? The gebrox can't go near him. And I guess her either now. But, we can have our gebrox and be happy. But I don't know, my wife wasn't buying it.
Does he hold at the level that the pots have to be?
No, it's not say the kalim, the pots,
So that would really
have any problems, right?
That's a deal breaker right there.
Right.
Makes it easy to know which holidays are coming to.
Yes. But that's just one simple example of different minhagim that families have, and there's so many we'll talk about. And you see that minhagim very much affect our lives. So really today I want to weigh how strong is a minhag? Is a minhag something which is unbudgeable? Can we sometimes change minhagim? What are the factors? How do we understand it?
I just wonder if you checked out whether you hold by air conditioning or sickness.
Why? Air conditioned.
He's starting up again. For those Floridians listening, the question was posed: what did I ask the chassan what his family minhag is about Florida sukkahs, with or without AC?
These are fair questions. It's sure been well asked already. You should be.
Okay. Maybe we should have the list.
Why didn't
Right?
you ask these questions?
For a rainy day, I'll have you guys compile the list of all the Minhagim questions to ask. We could save, this one is over with. But we could save future shidduchim if with your FBI, interrogation list of Minhagim to see if they match,
Sometimes it's better not to know too much.
Right.
This is not the way to say it. Should know.
Right? TFI.
They,
TMI, whatever they call it.
Yeah. You send the questionnaire with the residents. So you know what.
Now, I want to begin
no plastic.
the share with a very interesting story, which I found brought la Halacha in a sefer of Rabbi Yosef Shalom al Yashav. And the story goes like this. It's in the bottom of your sheets. There's an idea in general, there's a minhag, to do a chuppah under the stars. I believe, I remember, the basis of it, it's a bracha for the couple, that they should have offspring, generations, kechalchavim, like the stars. Okay, so there's a minhag to have a chuppah, ideally, outside. Obviously, in colder climates, it's hard to have it outside, but to have a skylight that's open,
The hall has.
right? That's open and that you could do outside. Now, practically speaking, this minhag does come up a lot. A lot of times you go to weddings in hotels. They usually do not have this. Unless it's the wedding took place in an atrium room in the hotel. Usually it's in some type of ballroom. There ain't no hole in the ceiling to the sky. In Jewish halls, they'll have it in New York. They're selling it's like a trap door, under a sewer. Who knows?
Right.
Right. You see the grates up there. Okay, yeah, I see the sky. But some degree of an opening is good enough. But there has to be some type of opening. You can think about it. You could have a wedding. You spent, way into the 6 digits to do a wedding in the Waldorf. But if you don't have a skylight, you're missing out on this inyan, on this minhag. So you say, okay, Rabbi, there's lots of minhagim. If you watch, we're going to do 100 different minhagim at the chuppah. They'll walk around 7 times. They'll do this, they'll do that. Break a glass, We're going to do all of the minhagim. So we missed one. What's the big deal? The Waldorf is a nice place. I'm making a nice wedding. So that was a shaila posed to Rabbi Yosef. What would you do in this situation where a family would want to do the wedding indoors without a skylight? So Rabbi Yosef, the question was posed by the Masada Kedushin. Look at the bottom of your sheets. This is word for word how Rabbi Yosef answered this question. He says, if they're going to want to do the Kedushin inside, that they want to go do it, in the house. There's a story with the famous Rav Yitzchak Elchanan, Specter, the Rav Kovner, Kishnismana b'tziyuruso the Rav, when he was first appointed as a Rav, a young Rav, the young Rav of the young Israel. Excuse me. Gevir Ira, the city wealthy man, his man Masada Kedushin Lebeso. He invited him to be Masada Kedushin in his house. The Gevir was going to do his daughter's wedding in his mansion. Hayazem Yom Geshem Higber Allah Tzilo Lishtanos Magma Chupper Benigel Minaglasos Chupper Bachatz Basic Nessus. Happened to be it was even a rainy day, and they wanted to do the wedding inside, not in the chutzner or the shul, which was normally done. Rabbi Yitzchak Khan Nodia Shemishana Me'aminag Yel Chabak Lebeso Lo Yisadav LeKedushin. Rabbi Yitzchak Khan said, if you're going to move it to your house, I'm going home. I'm not going to be Masara Kedushin. Wow. That's a stand taken by a young Rav. La'achmikan shaliu ma rav is akish adavar sheno isav halacha. Like, Rabbi, why are you standing so firm on something? It's not an isser to do a wedding inside. There's no halacha that says you have to do the wedding outside. El rak minhag ba'alma. There's a custom. There's a minhag. Osakim machlokas in gevira ira b'shosh adayin spasim namido. You're going to start a fight with the most powerful person in town as a young Rav just getting into the position? That doesn't make any sense. Strong question. Now, I'll wait for a moment to give Rabbi Yisrael Khanan's answer to the question. But I just want to build up, this scene is quite a big deal. It means you had a young Rav ready to withstand the ultimate pressure in town. The most powerful person in town is insisting, and it sounds like from the way they told over the story, it sounded very reasonable. It wasn't just, he wants to show off his mansion and let's do the wedding inside. No, his cheshbon was, it was a rainy day. Isn't it better to do the wedding inside versus outside? Okay, there's a minhag, but we don't want any rain in our parade. But yet Rabbi Yitzchak Khan stood firm and refused to do it. And people, were aghast by such a decision.
You know it was raining, or it was a rainy day?
It says Yom Gushin. I'm not sure. L'maisa, I know this factor. In yeshiva, Rav Henoch was very makbid on this. I assume this story, but others, but these type of things. You're makbid on. He should make sure that there's an opening. It's a big deal. But how do we weigh this? Before you read a story like this, before you see a psak lahalacha like this, you say, okay, it's a custom. It's not an isser. It's not brought lahalacha in the Shulchan Aruch. Pashtus, there's no Gemara that's a source for this. So what's the big deal? So let me first go. I think this itself needs explanation. I'm going to get back to Rabbi Yisrael Khanan's explanation that he gave. But first I want to start even earlier than that. I want to start with the Rashba. On the top of your pages, I brought a Rashba. Now this Rashba is talking about the minhag of what we call an ufraf. The Shabbos before a chasana, you make an ufraf, you make a celebration for the chassan. Now that's a limited minhag. It's a minhag. It's limited. Sephardim don't have it. Right. The Sephardim have it the Shabbos afterwards. Right? Talk about, women's rights by Sephardic communities goes, Ashkenazim, the chassan has an ofraf, they have a chasna, and then they have Shabbos Shavuot brachos. Kal gets a Shabbos Shavuot brachos. By the Sephardim, no ofraf. You have a wedding, And then Shabbat Chatan. There is a Shabbos Kala. No. But, I'm joking. I'm in trouble. My sorry friends. But, there's a minhag of, yes, I shouldn't limit it. I'm quoting a Rashba. Right? They'll start hacking Rashba riffs, Ramans, who was Sephardi, who was Ashkenazi. But there's a minhag, looks like dating back to the times of the Rishonim, of a Shabbos chassan, a Shabbos singing and dancing for a chassan. And really it's funny, just to put in perspective for a moment. A lot of these things, like, we lose things of the minhag over time. I remember when I was in yeshiva, there was a boy. In my days, it wasn't so common, this scenario. Usually what would happen was the Shabbos before a Talmud's, chasana, he'd go to his hometown, wherever he lived, and there'd be an offer for shul. So I remember one particular Talmud. Yeah, there was a Talmud who really was like a Baal Tshuva. He grew up in Los Angeles and didn't really have, I remember how firm his parents were. And he was getting married. I don't even think he was like a full-time Talmud in the yeshiva. Basically, the yeshiva hosted his ofraf. I remember one of the Rebbeim, Rabbi Tropper, Chassan's grandfather. He made a whole thing. He actually quoted the Mishnah Berurah, the way to describe that Shabbos of an Ofraf, is Shabbos sheshirim b'lo chassan, the Shabbos where they sing for the chassan. The whole essence of the Shabbos is singing for him. I believe the Halacha talks about, this is actually brought down this minute, that they would escort him to shul singing. Have you seen that yet in the streets?
Yes.
Where?
European.
Who did it?
We didn't have 100 people. A few people.
Who was that?
We did.
How'd you know this?
I just didn't know.
Psh, beautiful. It's very not so well known. Usually, okay, Shal Zir if you gotta get there early, buddy. He wakes up early, this runs the shul. But really, there should be an escort of people singing. Josh, wouldn't that be fun?
Yes.
Bring your kids, right?
Yes.
Walk the streets of Hollywood, North Miami Beach, singing a chassan to shul on Shabbos. Huh? Something like that. You're not going to have the band on Shabbos. But yeah, there's a certain escort singing. That really is the minhag. So, look on the top of your sheets. This is the Rashba speaking, the Rashba and the Mishmeres Habayis. Ani omer, ki minhagol shel Yisrael, b'chol makom u'makom, a minhag of Klal Yisrael, in all communities. Torah, it has the status of Torah. B'chol ma she'osim b'minhagam yisodal sam b'kodesh. All minhagim are based on holy things, or legitimate minhagim, from that one, are based on holy things. Okay, this is the Ashkenazic approach. Is in all places the minhag was to make a Shabbos Suda and singing in Simcha, the Shabbos of the Nisuin, before the week of the Nisuin. That's part of the Halacha. That's also Chassan has a Chiyav Aliyah for the Gabayim out there, right? During the Zohar, for sure.
It's the top level.
Yeah. Hare, this is Rabbi Yosef talking. Shaminid lahachin suda v'lasel simcha b'Shabbos zu yisoda b'kodesh v'torih. Harshish b'zeh mitzvah v'imkein mutar l'rakeh. Rabbi Yosef says you can even dance on Shabbos. Normally we don't dance on Shabbos. Rabbi Yosef says the kavod and ofraf, they can dance, no problem. Dancing on Shabbos. That's a bona fide mitzvah. What mitzvah? There's a minhag here. A minhag is Torah. I think just the words alone of the Rashba, and you see how he takes it. It's Rabbi Yosef commenting on this Rashba. Is a minhag is considered Torah. Yes, we have daraisas, we have d'rabbanans. Might be a different level, but it's part of our heritage, our legacy. A minhag is Torah, and then with that, it comes with a certain strength, a certain respect. So you have a question, young Rav, what are you picking a fight with the most powerful person in town? You're going to insist he doesn't do the wedding in the Waldorf? He doesn't do the wedding inside? Especially, it's supposed to be 100. I looked at it said 100% rain today. I don't know, Little League might be in jeopardy today. 100%. Okay. So should we move a chasna indoors? There's always umbrellas. That's why you stand under a chuppah. Lamaisa.
So you're not under the stars.
Huh?
So then you're not under the stars.
No, that works.
There's lots of protection under
The
that house.
chuppah is under the stars. That's okay. But that's the vart. Yes.
You've never been in a wedding where chuppah was outside and then it started torrential rainfall? Is it right before the kala came in and you moved inside?
No.
Is that right? Two.
Yeah. Lamaisa. Rabbi Yitzchak HaKohen wouldn't be happy. I know other people also wouldn't be happy.
What?
My wedding, my chuppah was very cold. So there was a fire, and then the fire department would not allow us to have the heaters in the chuppah anymore.
Oh no!
Only the chuppah was outside. Everybody else was inside.
Smart.
And then they had.
I've seen those. That's a very smart idea. Is you don't have to have the guests outside, but the chuppah should be outside. That's a big deal. You see here, what's the basis? This is Torah, first and foremost. And, the same way, normally we don't dance on Shabbos. But if there's a minhag, that's a mitzvah. We treat that like Torah, 100%. Rabbi Yosha's ready to give a heter in Meir Sha'arim to dance on Shabbos, l'kavod chasen. Now, I'll show you Rabbi Yisrael Elchanan's answer. Definitely the way Rabbi Yosef explains it. If you look on the bottom, Maramakum again, he adds a little bit more to this. He says, Heishiv lahem, so this is Rabbi Yisrael Elchanan answering back the people. No. Rebbe, Rav, how do you start up with the most powerful person? Quotes a pasuk in Shir HaShirim. Al ginos egos yiradati. I went down to the shell of an egos, of a nut. Mevi'in Chazal kinimshi Yisrael aguda, the egos. That the Jewish people are comparable to a nut. Okay. Ed, don't follow up with that one.
I wouldn't touch that.
I once had an uncle, he showed me on his coffee table, a bowl of nuts. He's like, this is your family. Okay? The Chachayim, he was a funny uncle. The Chachayim Minhagim Yisrael. And these are the Minhagim of Klal Yisrael. Gam kishenirmi b'chutz minhagel kal bilvad. Right? Rabbi Yosef touched it up, that there's two layers of a nut. Even when you see in the outside, the minhag looks very wimpy. You'll know what's hidden inside it. It looks to the naked eye, this doesn't seem such a big deal. Okay, what's the basis of this minhag? This minhag has been going on for hundreds of years. You're just seeing the shell. You're not seeing what's inside. Secondly, Rabbi Yosef explained the answer of Yitzchak Hanan. If you're going to be mevatel one quote unquote light minhag, You never know. You're just viewing the outside shell of what you're doing. Okay, as I'm about the 1 minute. You don't see the ramifications, what's hidden inside, if you forgo this. That second reason is a very, very powerful reason. Both of them are important. A lot of times these minhagim start, we don't know what their basis is. We don't understand it. You know, I'll tell you, I heard this from my wife's grandmother very, very strongly. We once, many times we talk about names. Names in the Jewish community. And there are some names that you hear them today and they sound off. I'll give you one example. Yenta. Yenta.
That's a
traditional Jewish name, Yenta. What's the connotation if you say the word today, Yenta? A Yenta.
She's a gossip.
A gossiper.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question.
A Yentala.
Right? Now, there's a very, I'm not getting into a whole shir about naming, which deserves its own shir.
Oh, wow.
Not simple. But let's say there was a grandmother whose name was Yenta. Classic Jewish name. And you say, it's a crazy name, doesn't make any sense. I remember Bobby Neumann, to say very strongly, he says, look, obviously she understood the connotation today, what a Yenta is. But she says, I am sure that obviously was not the intention of the name originally. It wasn't it. I'm sure there's very good reason for the name. And I was confident. Because minhagim are something, it's traveled through the ages. And as long as you could verify this is a legitimate minhag, nowadays people could unearth minhagim no one ever heard of for the past few hundred years. Yeah. That you have to be skeptical about. Check into well. But something which is a bona fide minhag that there was a name that was passed on for generations, you could be sure there's more than meets the eye than what you see today in 2023. 2024. It's more than meets the eye. And that's the idea why minhagim deserves respect. And secondly, Rabbi Yosef is explaining it's also that minhagim could, once you start playing, and I think we can understand this point even better with the Rashba. Once you start, pushing aside something as a minhag, then it's a very slippery slope. And what about the Rabbanans? And what about the Raisas? All Torah is connected. Minhag is part of Torah. Once you push away one thing, you're opening the door, an abyss of where people can just disregard halachas and halachas of Torah. So it's very dangerous. Don't start with the minhagim.
So,
yes.
If you're going from what might be considered a weaker minhag to a more chumrah minhag, i.e., let's say, holding the brachs on Pesach, does it behoove a person to change from eating the brachs to not eating the brachs? Is that a stronger minhag or a more?
That's a very interesting question.
Is your daughter going to have to make a decision whether or not to change, or does she have no choice?
She's done. She's done. She's not eating the brachs anymore.
Right. The common practice,
right here,
This is her last brachs play.
Is that women do take the minhagim of their spouses. That's
a minimum.
That's might be more than a minhag.
That's a minhag.
That's a halacha.
That's all biased.
Right. So women take. Now, what was posed as a secondary question also, do we rate minhagim based on which direction the minhag is going? Chumrah versus kula. So I'll tell you a story. I guess I can say this publicly, amongst friends. My mother-in-law was very excited when she married my father-in-law, Shiva. My father-in-law's family minhag is to wait 4 hours between meat and milk. Family comes from a little town, Polish town right outside of Germany. And their minhag, they didn't.
4 hours.
They were Polish. They missed the German minhag of 3, but they got 4. 4 hours.
Right.
My mother-in-law grew up with 6.
Right.
So she downgraded from 4 to 6. From 6 to 4.
Just her?
No, well, yeah, and then the whole mishpacha kept 4. My wife grew up after having a fleshik meal before she went to bed. She had ice cream, real ice cream. Then she got married to me. She went from 4 to 6. So my mother-in-law dipped in the kula from 6 to 4, but my wife grew up with 4, got married to me. She went up to 6.
My wife is.
My daughter is going to have to keep 6 and Gebrocks.
My wife is Dutch.
Yeah.
That's 1 hour.
1 hour.
1 hour. I think Yeka is 2 hours.
3, right.
2, 3.
So she went from you to 1 to 6?
Well,
Wow.
That's a machlokas.
Okay. Well, keep your shoulder bias intact. But
Don't worry about it. Now you were still in the.
Huh?
The answer is?
the answer is, I don't think we weigh the minhagim really in which direction they go. A husband and a wife, the wife follows the husband's minhagim in either direction. It's a two-way street. It's a chumrah
It's
is
the
cool.
women's liberation.
Yeah.
There.
But the Maisa, these questions about minhagim, I want to share one point. I really think that a share like this, today I'm viewing step 1, just the introduction to really the strength of what a minhag is. A minhag is halacha. Like this idea of getting married under the stars is a big deal. And, it's for sure something people listening to the share before you put down the deposit for the Waldorf realize, did you take this into consideration? It's a big deal. You do it in a hotel, the odds are you're not going to get, a skylight. If you're lucky, you get married, into an outdoor chuppah. Like you brought up, what happens on a rainy day? What are you going to do then? What's your backup plan? So, I would think I just got a call the other day. Some people are very formal. In the classic yeshivish world, you get told you're getting a kibbud at best the day of the chasna. Oh, can you make sure you come early to the chasna? I want to give you X, Y, or Z. The other day I got a call. I've gotten calls like, here in Florida, especially, just go out of town. I've gotten calls like months in advance. Will you accept this kibbutz? Oh, sure, thank you so much. Someone has called me 3 weeks in advance for a kibbutz. But really, Rabbanim should be contacted before you even book the hall. There are so many shilos that come up, right? Most people, they won't talk to their rabbi until the wedding date, the hall, and all these things are set up. And many times it's too late. What are you going to do? Now, you could work out. In the Sunshine State, we could do outside chuppahs, and that'll be okay. But this is a perfect example. There's a minhag here. Some people may not be so knowledgeable of it. But first and foremost, to realize that minhag is a big deal in halacha. Yisrael Chana was ready to fight the most powerful man in town as a young Rav to uphold that minhag.
So what happened?
What happened at the end?
What happened to that?
Keep his job.
Well, did you hear of Rabbi Yochanan? I think we
I don't
did.
think he lost his job.
All right? It sounds pretty amazing, but it sounds that they respected him. Or did they respect him? And I think it's quite ironic, his name is on the major institution in Washington Heights, even they didn't forget about
the
him.
name of the school?
What's the name of the school? Oh, yeah.
I really had one other area I wanted to get into, but it's also a Pandora's box where I saw poskim potentially make chalukim on a different angle on the basis of a minhag. Some minhagim are halachic shitas. Other minhagim are things which don't have a basis in halacha. Let me compare and contrast for a moment. I don't want to talk about kibbutz because that's its own topic. But let's say we've talked about before, putting on tefillin on Chol Hamoed, right? Now those are minhagim which have halachic basis, right? We've talked about that. Is that an os? Do you need an os? What do we do about that? So there's halachic basis behind that minhag. That might be what we call a type A minhag. Other minhagim, like we just said, let's say the dancing by an ofraf, or getting married out in outdoor chuppah. Those may not be based on a certain shita in the Gemara and halacha. It might be something behind it, of course. But so maybe we treat those minhagim differently. And there are questions I see the post can bring up. Is a son obligated to keep the minhagim of his father? Titash Torah Simecha, the Gemara Psalm talks about. Your father has a minhag, you have to keep it. Or are there certain minhagim? No, you could change, you could adapt. My father stood for Kiddush. I'm going to sit. What about that? Like you said, there's so many minhagim, you watch what people do.
Doesn't matter what yeshiva does.
Yeah, right.
What about nusach? Is that a minhag?
Yes, very right. What nusach yidavik? Excellent.
Absolutely.
That's a major minhag. And same type of thing. Is there basis to switch it, change it? These things come up a lot. So the idea is weighing minhagim do carry a lot of weight to it, and it's something that like everything else, needs good rabbinic direction and advice in tackling how to deal with minhagim. As Hashem, we should be zocheh to enjoy our minhagim, keep our minhagim, and learn more and more about how rich everything about Yiddishkeit is about. I'll tell you one thing. I want to leave it all to share.
Where's the paper?
Up there.